right, you ready? Welcome back to the Daily Carry Podcast. Here we are, cruising right along on to episode 3 today. I've had some really good conversations so far. Excited to continue the conversation today and talk a little bit about everything, as we normally do on this podcast. It is a gorgeous day here in Colorado. It's been really good weather the past couple of days. Very thankful for that. It's been getting pretty hot, though, and we've got a fan going in the background up here for the first time. I hope that doesn't... actually, I think we might have had it going the last time. I don't think we could hear it. So that's good. I think we're working the kinks out. You'll notice the microphones look a little different. Hopefully that helps cancel out some of that background noise out there. But we're going to see how this episode goes, how a couple of the changes that we made, hopefully they will be improvements, refinements, and you will see that continue to happen on this show over time as we figure out what we're doing.
This is fun.
Yes, it is.
Having a ball.
It's been really fun so far, and it's been really good conversation so far.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to continue on kind of along the same theme of our last conversation, really having to do with manhood. But we're going to talk about that in even further light today, and that is really a topic that came to mind is just comfort and the consequences of comfort.
Yeah.
And I think that along the lines of what you and I had talked about on the last episode, whenever you're comfortable, it's really difficult to be a strong person. Whenever you're comfortable, it's just that strength doesn't usually come out of comfort.
That's right.
It comes out of discomfort. And so we're really going to talk about some of that, some of those themes, go a little deeper, give some examples, and just kind of unpack what's there and talk further about what it is to be a man and also what it is in the world today to be a man, because being a man historically versus being a man today also has some challenges behind it, with societal challenges and hurdles that are thrown up our way and whatnot. So that's going to be what we're going to continue to talk about today.
Yeah, I would say to people, buckle in a little bit, and at the exact same time, understand this is not, it'd be easy to come out just swinging it right now for me. It'd be really easy to come out and just take some digs, and that's not what I don't believe scripturally we're called to do. It's not what I necessarily want to do as a man, but there's also a time where you got to stop and you got to recognize exactly what's going on. And, I call it the pothole theory. You can drive down the road and keep running through the same pothole that is there. You can swerve and go around it, or you can patch the pothole. And right now I feel like in this country, we got like a gazillion potholes.
Yes, potholes. And the pesky thing about potholes is it usually takes a super long time for the powers that be to actually do anything about them.
Yep.
And I think that I've seen a couple of different examples of people making attempts to get them some attention, to get them fixed, whether it be outlining them with chalk, spray paint, whatever, or whether it just be the community of men pulling together and be like, all right, we're done with this.
Yeah.
Let's do
enough.
this. And that is a great example of exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
Men just decide to stand up and be men, take care of the problem, and not wait for somebody else to fix it.
Right.
They're tired of being uncomfortable. And this example, uncomfortable, sick and tired of your tires going flat, sick and tired of your suspension taking the hit, and hitting those same stupid potholes. And for some of us, our wives hitting those potholes.
or other items.
or fire extinguishers. not fire extinguishers, fire hydrants, right? But that's a great example, because sometimes there's a responsibility that lies on powers that be. There's a responsibility that lies on others. But at a certain point, you kind of have this ability to just take it upon yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you should, whether ethically or legally, whatever. But if it's really a problem that's affecting your life and enough is enough, if a pothole's right in front of your house and you've been waiting forever, okay, go get a bag of whatever, fill it, and send somebody the bill that was responsible to pay for it.
Right.
Take care of the problem. That's a good example of just getting up, doing the right thing, and taking care of business.
Yeah. I want to clarify for people that, they'll tune in and they'll say, I listen to a fair amount of podcasts when I drive down the roadway. I listen to a lot of topic-based stuff. And one of the reasons that we talked about even doing this is really from the approach that we're taking. And I don't know that we're going to come out here and solve all the world's problems today when we're talking about what's happening out in society. But one of my concerns is when I watch the decline in the masculinity of men, what men's roles really are all about being a protector and a provider. We can get into that metaphorically, but when you deep dive into this stuff, I feel like it's crept in everywhere. I don't care if I turn to our churches, our schools, our businesses, even our military. I mean, I was looking at the other day at a campaign video from a couple years ago. I believe it was for the Army, and it was a cartoon. It was a cartoon of here's what it's like to join today's military in our, woke culture. And then I looked at a military ad from like 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to sign up the next day. It was like a bunch of dudes out taking care of business, standing on the front line saying, not on our watch. And it's amazing to me what a culture shift was from a few years ago to just a couple years ago back to where we're at now. And having a daughter that's serving right now, I want to know that she's taken care of, obviously, and protected by the powers to be. But I also am very, very proud of what she's accomplished. And I know the backbone that she has when she went in and her capabilities. So I take great stock in our leaders. And, I'm just speaking the military for a second, but this branches out everywhere. But it is very, very hard coming from an environment in the world that I worked in, where accountability was everything. And I feel like right now that is one massive, giant pothole in this country. It's like we have almost zero accountability across the board because we don't have men that are actually doing things that men are called to do. But we're trying to be something that we're not. And I think people are just sick and tired of it. I mean, we're talking about it all the time. Politically, we see it all the time. We see it everywhere in social media. But when you really deep dive this, we have a pretty legitimate problem in this country. I think we have a pretty deep psychological problem in this country. And we've just lost our way.
And whenever you talk about your daughter, it really makes it bring it into perspective. Obviously, you and me are talking about what it is to be a man, and we're talking about manhood, talking about being strong men. Why? Because we are men.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't really be uniquely qualified to talk about what it is to be a strong woman. But
Right.
I do think that a lot of what we're talking about is what it is to be a strong person.
Yeah.
And it can be, in a lot of ways, the same equation. Just doing what needs to be done, being that strong leader, not being afraid to do the right thing, even in a world filled with people telling everyone it's okay. In fact, not only okay, but mostly encouraging, no, it's okay to not do the right thing. Just take on this kind of a mindset and just take the easy way out, be comfortable. And
that's the key. It's easy.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, we have fallen into the trap of because it's easy, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said, I've got a t-shirt that says it. I've been saying it for years. I don't know how many different things I've put out. Like today, go do something hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like just go do something hard. It's amazing to me how simple that is. And yet how incredibly complex it's become for this country. Like get up off your butt and go out and do something hard. I don't care what it is.
Yeah. And in that really comes this, I mean, we haven't even really got into talking too much about like the systems that are in our own body and our own mind, dopamine, the way that we are seeking that dopamine hit, I mean, I'm not Andrew Huberman. He can definitely speak to all kinds of what's
True.
going on in your brain whenever you're doing all this. But whenever you go and do something hard and then you finish and it's done and you can look back on what you did, there's nothing like that experience. There's nothing that is really going to grow you as a person than starting to rack up some of those wins like that, knowing that you put in the work, you put in the grind, you worked really hard, and you did something.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. That's what, in a lot of ways, that's what we're programmed and built to do, is to chase after some of those harder things and become a better person through all of that. And whenever we're just being fed this silver spoon type of lifestyle where it's just, everything should be easy, everybody's a winner, everybody's completely equal, everybody's completely on the same page, no matter what, we want everybody to be treated the exact same. No meritocracy anymore for a lot of way that people view things. And I think that a meritocracy is very important. I think that merit-based systems are very important. And that's why I'm a huge proponent for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way.
faking it.
It's all merit-based. It's all you put in the work or you don't. And if you don't, then you'll never be good. And if you do, then you'll be really good. And the sky's the limit, and that's how life works.
Right.
You got to put in the work. You got to get out there. And like you said, just do something hard today.
Yeah.
I like what So some of you may or may not have any idea who Matt is with Demolition Ranch on YouTube, but I grew up watching him on YouTube, and he just recently retired. And I remember watching his retirement video from Off the Ranch, which was just his personal YouTube channel. And he said, something I would just tell myself every day is do something today that'll make tomorrow easier.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so simple, but at the same time, so challenging, because what are you going to do today that makes tomorrow better, makes tomorrow a little bit easier?
Yeah.
Because there's that word easy that we've talked about too, make tomorrow easier. Well, if you want to make tomorrow easier, it's going to come by doing something that's probably kind of hard today.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And you live that ethos. I mean, you're that guy. I'd like to think I'm wired in that way in our DNA, but it's get after it. And, you know, it's easy to sit here and talk. It's fun, by the way. I love that we're doing this. I want to be able to look back 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, once we have hundreds of episodes under our belt, we got this thing streamlined. And you know, just look at the topics that we've covered and see what we've graduated to. So are we still talking about the same crap a year from now? Like, in other words, is anything moved at all, or do we have the barometer still sitting in the same spot? So that'll be a good test down the road. Points of reflection, like what becomes important a year from now compared to where we're at now, compared to where we were at 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. Have we evolved, and or have we declined so much that all we're talking about is just the constant of getting, you know, beat in the face with this nonsense that's out there? And people can agree to disagree, but one of the reason I was making that point is I'm thinking about just what we've done in 3 weeks, essentially. If you stop and think about it, we talk about doing something hard. Hey, let's go do a podcast. Well, we could have thrown an iPhone up on the wall, put it on a tripod, and said, hey, let's go do something. And maybe it didn't been just as successful, but we said, no, if we're going to do something, let's do it right. And if we're going to get into the subjects, let's do it right. And if we're going to stand for something, let's stand for the things that we stand for anyway. That's not hard to do. The daily carry it comes naturally. That's hard to do. Like, people, I don't think completely understand perspective on that, but that's actually a challenge, not only to pull all of this off to get it going, but to be able to stand on what it is that you believe in can be challenging in and of itself. But then to take it the extra mile in everything that you do, and that's really the point that I was driving. I haven't been around you a day where it's not, I got this to do, this to do, this to do, this to do, and I'm just going to get it done no matter what. And at the end of the day, I mean, I said to you yesterday, I said, I think you're a glutton sometimes because you're doing 15, 16 hours a day. And just because you're working a really long day doesn't always mean that you're productive, but you are. And that's one of the things that I think, again, I'm targeting during this episode, at least from my point of view. What's it like to be a man in today's society? What's it like to stand on, take a little bit deeper dive in this, and at the exact same time, what is it about being comfortable? Because I look at what's happening in the country right now, and if I look at LA, just as an example, you got people standing out in the streets day and night. Whether they're paid or not paid, I don't know. I'm not getting into all the politics of it, but it takes a lot of effort to get up off your butt, to get off your couch, to go outside, put all your little gear on, run around in the middle of the street for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, hurling insults, rocks, and everything else. There's a lot of effort that goes into that, and there's a lot of stupidity behind it, in my opinion. But if you're taking that same effort and channeling it into something good and getting after it and doing something hard, imagine how productive you would be. But instead, you're taking the easy road. You're going out, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're adding to all of these problems in society that nobody wants. I mean, I think when you cut it down to size, I don't think anybody actually wants it. But it gives people, for some reason, it gives them either a unique purpose or some kind of feeling that they've accomplished something. And to me, I'd rather sit back and go paint a wall and look at it and go, wow, my wife came home. She left in the morning. I painted a wall in the afternoon. She comes home. I hung a couple new pictures on it, and I've redecored my wall. I did a little bit of a challenge, and I did something loving for my wife, as opposed to going and standing out in the middle of a flipping street screaming at somebody. And both of them require work to get done. And I guess that's kind of the point I'm getting at. It's like, where are you channeling and what are we doing? And we've just channeled so far in the opposite direction of, to me, what common sense should be. It's kind of bewildering right now. Yeah.
And you mentioned that we could have just set up an iPhone on a tripod. And let's give a full disclaimer.
Yeah.
That's what we literally did.
That's what we started with.
We set up a couple of different iPhones with camera angles, and we just had some lavalier wireless lav mics on, and we shot our first episode that way. Mm-hmm. And hey, it wasn't absolutely terrible, but at the same time, it wasn't what you and I both knew it should be.
Right.
And so rather than just Number one, quitting, being like, no, this is a lot more than we thought it was going to be. Let's not do this. Or rather than number two, just saying, all right, let's just keep doing it with the iPhone and these lab mics and just see if it ever goes anywhere. Instead, we took a step back and we said, no, let's just do it right.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some money.
Yeah.
But let's do it. Let's do it right. And that's what we did. We went and we did the research. We did all that. We did the deep dive down what podcast equipment looks like and what we need. And then we end up piecing all this set together. Right. And we did the work to get to where we're at. Whether that amounts to anything to anyone else besides you and me, I don't really care.
It feels
you
good
and
to me. Yeah.
You and me are having a good conversation, and if all that comes out of this ever is me and you having good conversations, I'm fine with that. Me and you love to talk, and I love talking to you. Hopefully, I'm not such a bonehead that you just dread every time you have to talk to me.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and I wanted to just exactly what you said. Make sure we're putting our best foot forward. Put in the work required and not just try to cut any corners, take any shortcuts, because there's no doubt this world is filled with shortcuts. That's the issue. The underlying issue, I think, in this entire theme of what we're talking about today is comfort leads to complacency.
Yeah.
Comfort will lead you to not becoming better, not being motivated to become any better.
Right.
But whenever you force yourself to get into the uncomfortable, whenever you force yourself to start getting better, it's not comfortable, right? So whether you're in an uncomfortable position or you're in a comfortable position, whenever you start really willing improvement into your life, whenever you start willing better choices into your life, it's going to be uncomfortable, even if you are living in a pretty comfortable world.
It's true.
Those hard choices, it comes with a level of uncomfort. And I mean, look at the world we live in where continuing on a regular basis, there is ways that people are trying to take shortcuts. There is ways that people are trying to avoid work. Just think about where AI is right now.
Yeah.
And the way that's everybody's predicting all this huge shift in the job market and all this, that, and the other, rather than looking at it and saying, man, this is going to make us, there's definitely some people who are thinking this way and using it this way, which is awesome. Oh, we'll just be able to use this and now we'll be able to work 10 times harder on this while AI is working on this for us. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, what AI is starting to do, that is probably going to take a lot of people's jobs if they're not willing to get out there and better themselves and work harder.
Right.
Because AI is able to do a lot. AI is able to be very productive and very quickly productive. It's efficient. And some of those smaller tasks and even some bigger tasks now that you would have otherwise had to be throwing together on software, on apps, whether it was Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, whatever it might be. There's lots of applications. I mean, even Adobe, even Photoshop, things like that, where AI is just able right now, and it's getting better and better being able to do those tasks. But it's learning how to leverage that, not let it replace and make your life easier, but how do I keep myself working just as hard on other things while AI is making my life easier in this way to stay productive, to stay not just on the same level that we've been at even before AI, but to scale, to really get up higher to that next level of productivity. How do I get this to where I'm working just as hard, if not harder, than AI is, and we're just having this synergy?
Yeah.
That's where I think there's this little bit of a disconnect between where we're at right now. Because, I mean, AI is just one example. Think about just like the way that the world has been in the fitness industry right now with fitness products. Think about semaglutide,
right,
Ozempic, all those drugs out there where people are using that to lose weight. Not that I'm against any of that, but if you're going to do that, you should also be putting in a fair amount of work.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that and leverage that tool, you shouldn't let the tool work harder than you're working. And I think that that's kind of an age-old saying, no matter what. I mean, you're going to get an axe, you let the tool do the work, but the tool doesn't outwork you.
Right.
You know?
Well, and yeah, I mean, there's about 1,000 subject lines that we could go down on that. But the point to me across the board is in society, and I'm speaking societally, we have shifted somewhere. And I think a big portion of the shift happened during COVID. In the beginning, I was pretty forgiving of the whole deal because we didn't know what we didn't know. I mean, there was a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories, and that's fine. I can listen to them all and evaluate on my own and discern on my own. But I do think that's where the decline really, really started. That's where I really genuinely noticed a massive shift. I mean, it was starting before COVID, but it just went on steroids all of a sudden. And by the end, really, of the lockdown, if you will, and where the mandates started getting lifted and blah, 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 it's like people just kind of came out of this fog. And all of a sudden, it's like, man, some of people were forced to stay home. Some people chose to stay home, whatever it may be. And then you had an entire workforce. I mean, imagine being heads of companies, CEOs of major corporations, and you got 80% of your workforce in their house. They've been sitting in their house 2-3 years, and now all of a sudden you got to make a decision. Do we bring them back? Do we not bring them back? And I just think there's like a gazillion different things that fed into this, but that to me is one of the primary drivers of what we've created in lazy men, less masculinity. I'm sitting around. I'm not motivated. I'm not doing anything. And that then gets projected out into society. And then there's a transference that occurs at the exact same time. And now we're living in the byproduct of that. Now all of a sudden, it's like we've woken up out of this fog. We got everybody kind of screaming and kicking and yelling about what do we want to do and what responsibilities are and blah, 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 blah. And we could, dude, the amount of stuff that we could talk about is literally as the byproduct of it is overwhelming. But to me, there's one central theme. And that is we have literally lost our motivation and our drive to go out and be what it is that we're naturally wired to be. So we're fighting this thing internally that tells us we should be doing this, but we're not. And we're justifying what we're not doing so that we can take that easy road. And I think we're going to see that in the bad effects of that for a long, long time. I don't think this is going to be a sweeping change, new president, new regime, new whatever you want to call it. That's not going to change mindset right now. And you can't beat a nail any harder than you can. I mean, once it's hit the ground, you're done beating it. And every time we pick up a sledgehammer and hit it harder, all we're doing is making a deeper hole. We've got to rethink about where we're at and redefine, to me, as men, what we need to be doing and dig deep. I mean, this is like an accountability thing with every dude, not just somebody's going to flip a switch in the United States of America because somebody got elected and go, oh, we're in a brave new world all of a sudden. No, we're not. We're in the same place we were. We just have a different set of leadership. And the leadership now is trying to realign it and look how much pushback we're getting right now. So, and a lot of that just comes out of that fear and laziness. I don't know how else to categorize it. I think there's a ton of fear and I think there's a ton of laziness. And you combine those two things and it's incredibly unproductive and it's becoming very violent across this country right now.
Well, that word laziness, I mean, that's obviously been around historically forever. I mean, we can find the word lazy or slothful in Scripture.
Sure.
Right? So that's definitely not something new, but at least at this level, it definitely seems like something that is not normal.
But you're seeing it in real time right now. That's the difference. Like I can do something and within 2 seconds, my daughter can see it in Japan. Like right now, right? So it's endorsing because you're seeing it in real time, I think. I think when you see somebody doing something right in front of you, even though they're 1,000 miles away, they're like, oh, well, he's doing it, so I can do it.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that in history before.
I think that's a very good point. We weren't able to just have this instant connection via the internet,
right?
Via a phone call, whatever it may be. I mean, you can get on X, formerly Twitter, and just look and see exactly what's going on in all points of the world anytime you want.
And you're saying it to 7 million or 70 million or however many viewers you have or followers or whatever. And you can say a total lie and half of them will be like, yep, there you go. Dave said X and therefore we're off to the races. And we've never competed with that before. This is a whole new deal. Yeah.
And 70 million followers. Yeah. If you're listening, 70 million followers, subscribe to Daily Carry. Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yeah. I don't know. Turn alerts on, whatever. I don't know, wherever you get podcasts, wherever you're listening. Continue to tune in. We'd appreciate it. But regardless or not, whether this ever gets to millions or whether this just gets to thousands, hundreds, or whether it gets to just a couple, the intent here is to have a conversation that's going to help better each other, number one, and then better anybody who's listening.
Yeah.
And the way that I firmly believe that we do that is just by telling the truth, because you've continued to bring up fear, you've continued to bring up laziness, and a lot of that, I think, comes from the lies that we're just being fed every day.
Right.
And so how are we going to combat lies? With the truth.
Sure.
Overcome evil with good.
Right.
And the truth is this laziness that we're seeing, I do agree with you that it's being multiplied more and more by people just seeing it online. But I also think that whenever you're able to just sit on the couch, watch TV, play video games, look and scroll through social media and just have a comfortable life at home. That is something that's going to multiply laziness. That's not something that really fosters productivity. That's not something that fosters and encourages improvement or hard work. That's just, hey, be comfortable. And if we really think about it and think about the underlying agendas that may be there for, people at the top of the top running the world, they want us to be comfortable. They want us to be comfortable. They want us to think that we can just sit back, relax, and they're going to take care of everything. They're going to do it all. Why? Because they just want to do whatever they want to do. They don't want to have to be accountable to anybody who's going to stand up and actually stand up for the right thing. And as more and more people become comfortable and complacent, and they sit at home and they don't really get out and live the life that they could have otherwise been living, and standing up, being the strong people, strong individuals with their own independence, their own voices, without that being there, more and more every day whenever somebody chooses the couch and the phone versus getting up, going outside, communicating, connecting with people, having a life that you stand up and you use your voice. You use what's been given to you rather than just being a consumer. We become producers. That's what I think we're talking about. If we just have that conversation for a second,
Sure,
is being a producer rather than a consumer. It seems that the cogs that are turning the world right now, they just want to keep churning out more and more consumers. They just want us to sit in our houses. They want us to consume and not have to have a single worry or care in the world. And I think that they have otherwise pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes to think, hey, we got this. You don't need to worry about anything. Just let us take care of this. Go live your life. And I think that we can see a lot of how that has worked out and how it's fleshed out into this world by way of just laws like gun control.
Yeah.
I mean, just sit back. We need less guns, not more guns. We just sit back because you can trust us. The government has guns. We've got police. We've got military. We're going to protect you. At the end of the day, the average response time for emergency responders.
Yeah.
I mean, we need people to be equipped and ready to protect themselves, protect their families, and I mean, you're going to hear people say, go buy a shotgun. Okay, that's great. What if I want a shotgun and I want a whole lot more than a shotgun? That should be fine too. That's within my rights.
Right.
That's a part of what makes America, America, not because we are a bunch of people who go out and just murder each other on the streets every day.
Right.
No, but because we are a bunch of well-intentioned individuals who have good intention, a good moral compass, and we want to protect our families, and we want to be a part of a country that is okay with us protecting our families,
Right.
and not just feeding us this, hey, give us your guns, we'll take care of you. Because historically, we know where that leads.
Sure.
And it's nowhere good, ever.
Right.
So that's just one example. And I think that with us being the Daily Carry podcast, and that really being a theme, we've done a pretty decent job so far of continuing to make sure we're having it grounded in Scripture, grounded in truth. But we can also talk a little bit more about what we carry daily.
Yeah.
We've got a gun and a knife on our logo, and we've got a cross, and we've got the American flag. That's important too. That's in the background.
It's important.
But carrying a gun, carrying a knife is very important. But I feel like that right now in this world we're living in, where it's very real what we're talking about, this comfort, this laziness, and this fear. Well, the fear's there, and it drives at least a lot of people to say, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a gun. That's what I'm going to do about it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a gun, at least, in case anything goes wrong. That's not enough. Just buying a gun, buying a knife, that's not enough. You've got to be able to know how to use it, when to use it, and you got to know the ramifications, the legal blowback of what happens if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to use it. And I think that that's a really good segue right now. Everything we've talked about, I think, really leads us to this point of being a strong person means putting in the effort,
Right.
putting in the work, going the extra mile, not just settling for what's easy and convenient, but making sure that you're not just saying, okay, I'm going to do this and take this shortcut. In this instance, I'm just going to go buy a gun, put it in my safe at home, whatever, and I'll have it ready in case. That's not enough. And for some people listening, I'm going to get my concealed carry and just carry my gun. Just I'm going to buy one, I'm going to carry it. that is not a great way to make sure that you're prepared at all. That is, in a lot of ways, a shortcut.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous,
And
actually.
I think you and I are on pretty much almost the same page. I mean, carry a gun, sure, but it would almost be more. I don't know. It's kind of a two-sided coin. I encourage everybody to exercise their Second Amendment freedoms and to protect themselves, equip themselves. But it just starts. In fact, I don't even. In a lot of instances, it doesn't even start with buying a gun or buying a knife. It starts before that.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with researching and putting in the work, making sure that you have the knowledge beforehand, how to use it and what it means when you use it, and what the risks are that you're taking just by carrying it, and also if you're ever in a situation that you have to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people who just think, I'm just going to carry a gun, and if I need to use it, I'll use it. We'll deal with it later.
Sure.
What happens whenever you draw it and then you get a jam and you have no idea, you've never even shot it before?
Right.
Or maybe you've shot it a couple rounds down the range, but you have no idea how to clear it. You have no idea how to, sometimes people are so untrained that they pull it and then they don't even turn the safety off.
Yeah.
If it has safety, right? There's a lot of things that have to be worked out with repetition, worked out with training. And that's the piece I'm really getting at, is that a lot of people their answer is, I'm going to buy a gun.
Well, because it's comfortable. I think it feels safe in people's minds. I live in this world. I've trained thousands upon thousands upon thousands, and I've been trained by some of the very best. I consider myself proficient. I consider myself probably above average. A lot of people look at me and at my career, my resume, and say, "Oh, you're an expert." No, that's like saying you're an expert in jiu-jitsu. Like you are always a student. If I've learned anything about being on that mat, the mat doesn't lie. And when we're talking about being comfortable, and this, I think this is important for people who are listening right now to really grasp something, because you brought up some good points about carrying a weapon. It's very easy to go buy it. So I slap $500 down. I go pick out my gun. I pick out my holster. I get my permit. I put it on my person, and I walk around, and I have some degree of confidence. And maybe you're an anomaly, and maybe you're a dead shot, and maybe you're a reasonable thinker, and maybe you're a critical thinker, and maybe you have incredible discernment, and maybe you can de-escalate everything in your mind before you even pull this gun to know that you're an unprecedented evil and you got to take this action. Maybe you're that guy. I would say the vast majority of the people that I have dealt with are not that person. Usually it's the polar opposite of that. The attitude is I've got it, and therefore I'm good. But what a lot of people just don't understand is these things happen anywhere, 10 feet, under 6 to 7 seconds is pretty much the national norm in a gunfight. I don't know how many schools I've gone in and met with leadership or churches, and they're like, we'll dial 911. And I'll be like, okay, well, you pull out your phone, and if I get to you on the other side of the table before you can dial 911, right, let's see how that goes. And then even if you dial 911, what's the response time for your emergency responders? That's what we deem the response window from the time something breaks bad until it's over. So when I talk about doing something hard, when I talk about not being a soft individual, not being lazy, if you're going to carry a gun, you can't be any of those things. Nor can you be the pendulum swing to the other side where you're just practically militia bound. I think that there's just a very simple middle ground to all of this that says, hey, if I'm going to carry, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to understand what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it the right way. 95% of gun tactics that we carry start with de-escalation. 95%. 95% of fighting, MMA style fighting, starts with the best fight to win is the one you don't get into. Just don't get into the fight. And people are like, well, why would you instruct striking? And well, because when I need it, I need it. It's like having a gun and not carrying it does me no good when I need it in that 3-second window. So better to have it on your person and not need to use it than need it and not have it. And, it's an age-old expression, but all of this comes down to putting in the effort. Getting out of laziness, coming in here. It's like being on the mat. I went through Shark Tank. You ran it. You're rolling with 16 dudes in a row with like a 8-second break in between, and somebody else jumps on you for 2 minutes and they work you, and then you get an 8-second break, and then somebody else jumps on you. By the time you've rolled for 35 minutes, you're just beat. I mean, that is a 35-minute fight is an endeavor. It's like a forever deal. A 2-minute fight out in the street feels like forever. For anybody that's ever been in one, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, you think 2 minutes isn't a big deal, come on down. I'll work you for 2 minutes, and we'll see how that fares for you, because at the end of the day, it's exhausting. So I say all that to say this: the gun is not the solution. The gun it's a tool, but it's a byproduct of you and your critical thinking skills, your discernment, your physical fitness. All of this stuff comes into it, and that's part of what the daily carry is all about. It's you if you're gonna the way I would put it is if I'm gonna put a gun on my person or a knife on my person, and I have no idea what I'm doing with it, and I go out and I think I'm okay, that's like carrying a Bible and never opening it, never reading it.
That's a good example.
So
I really like that.
I've got this book, right? It's filled with all sorts of stuff. And I've got 3 scriptures that I memorized out of it because I think they're cool and they apply to the t-shirt that I'm wearing today. But I have no idea what the preface is to it. I have no understanding of any of it. And it looks really, really cool on my t-shirt. And I think sadly we got a lot of people that do that. And at the end of the day, there's no excuses in the kingdom of heaven. There's just none. When you get to judgment day, there's no excuse that's going to matter. So we can make them down here all day long, and we're doing a really good job at it in this country. And we've got a lot of people making a lot of excuses for a lot of things and a lot of convenience and a lot of laziness and a lot of just listen to me, we'll fix it, but no personal accountability. And when I was on that mat going through Shark Tank, ain't nobody coming in to roll for me. The bottom line is I had to get through all 35 minutes on my own, and I was exhausted and I was beat down, and I'll admit I felt like I was out of my element, but you don't give up, you don't let go, and you just keep going. And at the end of it, when I stood up and I got a hug from everybody, and then we go around and everybody high fives you and they congratulate you, there is just this overwhelming feeling of emotion, of accomplishment. And at the exact same time, you darn well better be smart enough to realize what you got through is what you got through, and you got a long road to go to the next level and to the next level and to the next levels. I say all that to say I don't feel like I'm an expert in anything, and I don't care how many thousands of people I've trained. I just feel like I can teach a degree of common sense. The gun doesn't lie and the mat doesn't lie. Those are the 2 things that I know.
Very true. And I think that a lot of what you're saying has brought me to thinking about this, and that is the intent of why we carry. And it's not dissimilar to the intent of why we train jiu-jitsu, train striking, train martial arts. It's all the same. And there's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of even powers that be that are trying to act like people who carry guns are bad.
Yeah.
People who, if you even want to have assault rifle, if you want to have an AR style rifle, you're just a bad person. Why do you need that? Why do you want? Well, I'm not carrying it, and we're not talking about carrying a gun because we want to be killers. It's the exact opposite. We want to carry because we want to be defenders.
Sure.
We want to carry because we want to be protectors. And that doesn't mean that we're looking for somebody to protect. It doesn't mean that we are looking for an altercation with somebody to where we have to draw on them or where we have to put hands on them.
Right.
No, it's the exact opposite of that. And the intent of why we carry, the intent of why we train, the intent of why we want to be capable of being dangerous is very important, because it's not this intent of we want to be able to go out and hurt people.
Right.
It's not this intent of we want to just be able to be these tough guys that just walk around and just puff our chests everywhere we go, and we're like, you want some of this? That's not what we're doing.
Right.
It's the opposite of that. It's being able to carry it with humility and with responsibility, and making sure that whenever we are every day picking up what we're going to carry, carrying our cross, carrying our gun, our knife, carrying our training, that we're carrying it with the responsibility and the wisdom that it deserves.
Right. I think so you just brought up something that's a really good point, and I want to differentiate this for people that don't speak this language at all, and to be very fair, because we don't know who's listening. So if you're one of these people that you've sat at home, and let's say you're the bride, and your husband's really into like UFC stuff, right? And he gets a pay-per-view, and you sit down and you watch your first one, and there's 2 dudes just Conor McGregoring each other, just talking smack, and they're in each other's face, and they're dropping F-bombs, and they go out and they're flipping each other off. And at the weigh-in, they're pushing each other, and then they get out into the ring. The crowd is cheering, and the music is playing, and you got all of the lights, and just everything is just, you feel the power in it, the intensity, and these 2 guys just look like they're at war with each other. That is sport fighting. I was listening to Tim Kennedy the other day. Tim Kennedy is kind of one of my heroes. I mean, any dude that can go over into the box and rescue literally thousands of people after a drawdown to get them to safety should be every guy's hero. But because Tim Kennedy is Tim Kennedy, and he is a UFC fighter, and he's a former, he still SF, in my opinion. You're always SF. But the bottom line is he's one of the baddest dudes on the planet, and he's one of the most tactical dudes on the planet, and he's one of the most cryptic dudes on the planet, and he's one of the most humble dudes. So I watch what Tim does. Tim takes his ability in jiu-jitsu and in tactics and goes out and saves people's lives, and he's a defense trainer. But the guys that you see in these UFC fights, that's sport fighting. The difference is you're rah-rahing the crowd because you're going out there to go one-on-one in a sport fight. That is not the same thing as being out in the street. And when people say, well, Micah, how many fights have you been in? Hundreds, literally. And they're like, oh, that's a bunch of crap. I'm like, well, no, it's really not, because the truth of the matter is I've been playing hockey since I was 8 years old. I'm 56. I was the enforcer on every team I've ever played on. And fights could be anywhere from 8 seconds to 45 seconds out on the ice. Typically, they're not going to go longer than that. I've been hit in the face hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times. This is why I'm ugly. And I've beat down a few guys. I've been beat down a few times. A lot of times it ends in a draw, and you go drink a beer and have chicken wings afterwards with the dude you got in a fight with, because that's just the nature of hockey. People don't always understand that. But in the UFC world or in the mixed martial arts world, it's kind of the same principle. It's sport fighting. How many street fights have I been in? 7 total street fights, and 5 of them were as a cop with dudes that just unequivocally, absolutely, I don't care who was there, they weren't going to jail. There was no way you were going to arrest them. There was no way they were going to comply. 7. And people are like, that's it? You've been in 7 street fights? Yeah, 7. Because I didn't grow up out on the street getting in a fight every single day. I mean, I've had my playground scraps when I was a kid. I had a couple fights in high school just because you're in a fight in high school. But I've been in hundreds of martial arts as far as one-on-one training things, where you get punched or you're hitting somebody, but it's all in training. So there's just the point to all that is there's a huge difference between sport fighting out in a ring on TV versus what happens out in the real world. And have I had to arrest hundreds of people and had to be in scraps? Yeah. But full-on knockdown, bare-knuckle, throw-down fights with suspects? Yeah, literally 5. 5 of my 7 street fights have been as a cop. Maybe 100 scraps as a cop to get guys under control, but most of that's just controlled with mixed martial arts anyway. So there's an element to all of this that I think people just really misunderstand. Both of them require work. There's no faking it in sport fighting, and there's no faking it in street fighting. But if you're competent and you can control either environment, I don't like listening to dudes that have claimed they've been in hundreds of street fights. I'm not saying they haven't, but that's a pretty tout number to be throwing around. And if you're that guy, you're probably out looking for problems all the time. You're not the guy solving problems, in my opinion. You're just the guy creating problems.
There's only been a few, at least that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that there are some tough street fighters out there, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, there's been quite a few examples of guys who came from street fighting. They went into UFC. They didn't do so well.
Right.
Kimbo Slice. I know Masvidal was kind of the exception. He got in and did pretty well.
He did pretty good.
But
and there's some bad dudes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are.
Yeah, good dudes. But what I'm getting at is it's important to distinguish between showmanship, between that's show business,
right,
and real world,
right,
real life. Now, I'm sure that some of those guys that are from the streets, they're street fighters, whatever, they're going to walk around with that tough persona. They're looking for a fight. But I'm sure that there's a lot of them that are even of that, like, even street fighting today, it's show business. Look at how many YouTube pages there are, street beefs, whatever. I just heard somebody else talking about another one. And what is it? Still show business. You're still doing it. You're not just doing it for free.
Yeah.
You're doing it hoping that you're going to build a name for yourself and get invited, whether it's to the UFC, whether it's to Bellator, whatever it might be. But you're hoping that it's going to open doors for you to be able to make a career out of it.
Right.
And that's different than training to equip yourself to just be able to carry yourself through life and be the person you're supposed to be. A lot of UFC fighters, a lot of MMA guys, I've had the honor of being able to meet a few over the years, and they're usually pretty down to earth, humble people.
Yeah.
Even if you see this persona on TV, on pay-per-view, on social media, where they're trash talking their other opponent, that's part of the business.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that even promotions like WWE are around and they're so entertaining and have such a big audience, such following. It's because it's show business.
Sure.
You're making a show out of it. People like a show, and there's nothing wrong with that. Showmanship's important. And, I mean, we've got our own version of showmanship going on with Pit Boss and with JWI.
Well. Yeah.
And that's that's a separate part of it, because I mean in JWI we're going that extra mile of, well, we are not just grappling, but we're actually throwing weapons and guns and knives. So that's a whole nother level of show business that we're trying to bring to the showmanship and the competitive nature of martial arts. And that's been a lot of fun. But again, that is show business. That's showmanship. Whenever it comes to the reality of every single day carrying our weapons, carrying our training, carrying all that, I can't help but think of the person that I think I've heard put it the absolute best is Jordan Peterson. And the way that he has said it is that there is no morality in not being equipped.
Yeah.
There's no morality. You can't say that you're a good person just because you're not equipped.
Right.
And that's what a lot of ways society's trying to get us to believe, is that, oh, if you just lay down your weapons, you don't have a gun, you're a good person.
Sure.
Same thing with just being violent or having the capability of violence. Is if you just don't train jiu-jitsu, you're just a pacifist, whatever. You don't believe in violence, so you just don't train. So that makes you a good person. That's the complete opposite.
Right.
And I completely agree with that. Whenever I heard him explain it, it clicked in a way that it's never clicked. And that's the only way that you really have morality and you are a good person. It doesn't come by being comfortable.
Sure.
It comes by, it's hard. It's hard. And the way that he ends that conversation is by saying, being a good person is hard. It's not easy to be a good person. It's having this capability of extreme violence. It's having this capability of having a weapon and using it skillfully, having a skill set, being able to do jiu-jitsu, being able to strike, and being able to do it really well, to where if you ever have a problem with somebody, you can flip that switch and you can do what you need to do. You can do what's necessary.
Do you think people are
having
doing
it
that?
in control?
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Finish that thought.
Having it in control. No, my thought was pretty much finished there. What was your question?
Well, do you think that people, and this is my perception, but do you think that the people that are out doing what they're doing right now, being, call it peaceful protest and all the stuff that it's just silly to me right now. Do you think that they've sold themselves on the fact that that's what they're doing? So in other words, they're not passive, they're very aggressive, but they're aggressive in a way that is so incredibly non-productive, unhelpful, dangerous, yada, yada. Do you think that's justified in their minds? Do you think that, I'm asking you to speculate on something we could never answer, but to me, that's almost how that feels.
I mean, at the end of the day, people have their own free will, their own opinions, and I'm actually for that. I want people to have their own free will, their own opinions. As far as a lot of the protests that are happening out there right now, No Kings is a good example. It's one of the biggest ones that's out there, having all the protests that they had throughout the country, and one of them was literally right here in our hometown of Castle Rock. And the whole premise behind that, I mean, if you just look at the statement, No Kings, obviously I'm going to disagree with that, because I believe there's one king.
Sure.
It's not Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, even Donald Trump says there's only one king. I saw him say it yesterday.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
One king.
He came out and said it.
One king. And the thing is this, what they're protesting for, they obviously have been led to believe that the powers that be are corrupt. They can turn around and argue the same thing about us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I are both sitting on this show. We both have very similar stances on what we believe and what we believe politically. But at the end of the day, you and I are both pro-choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, pro-opinion, free will, right? We want people to be able to, within reason, be able to exercise their own free will. I'm not trying to force my opinion on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain level, there's absolutely things that we have to make sure that other people's opinions are not being forced on us either.
Sure.
And they're not being written into policy to affect our lives and other people's lives in a negative way.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing a lot of people just go with that, whether they even fully understand it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're talking about. I think that's definitely what your question was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that your question was more so, do you think that these people are going along with this and they kind of just don't even really know what they're going along with? Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, they're going along with a narrative that they're not critically thinking through, but also what I was driving at is passivity, because what we're seeing is it's not passive. It's very aggressive right now. And it's aggressive in a lot of different ways. So we could rabbit trail in a lot of directions. I'm just focusing on, what we were really talking about was comfort today, like being I think of the movie again. I think I said it maybe even in the first episode. I don't know if I didn't, but Wall-E, the movie, the Pixar movie, where the whole first half of the movie is this cute robot and he's finding his way through. And the second half of the movie is just about all of these people that are just sitting around, they're slobs. They're just sitting there in a chair and everything's fed to them and it's handed to them and they get the remote in their hand. And it really painted a very dark, bleak picture. And yet it's kind of the direction we're headed right now. So I'm just wondering if all of this pushback that we're seeing, and I'm not trying to overly focus on protests, but it just really bothers me that I've lived here for 25 years. And this past weekend, we had 100, I don't know, it was 300 and some people show up here for this No Kings thing. And the irony is we don't have a king. We have a president. We're not over in England. We're here in America. This perception of, somebody is now a Nazi. Apparently people don't understand that, cattle car Germany, 1941, need to read a Dietrich Bonhoeffer book or something. But at the end of the day, we live in an amazing country where your freedoms are almost limitless, almost. And yet we are like the people that hate America the most are Americans. Like that is a fascinating topic in and of itself. And I think so much of that comes from the very thing that we open with. It's because of laziness. It's what we've bred. It's what we've allowed. It's what happened during COVID. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts and various factors. But I will say this, and I'll say this out with zero ability to quantify it. This is 100% assumption on my part. I actually don't think anybody really likes where we're at right now on either side of the political aisle, regardless of how we're acting. I think people genuinely know the difference between right and wrong because we all have a conscience. Like I firmly believe that you and I could sit here and pick any subject line apart, and we would know the difference between right and wrong. And there may be an anomaly here or there where you have some people who are just so far off the reservation, they're completely psychotic, or they're so demonstrative that all they see is through the lens of evil. But I don't think that that's categorically sweeping the nation. I think we have a lot of stupidity sweeping the nation, a lot of bad choices, but I think a lot of it is bred by fear, by a degree of laziness, and certainly by intent of I don't want to face the thing that I don't want to face due to entitlement, so therefore I'm going to go out and I'm going to act out. And we see that across the board everywhere. So when we start talking about softness or laziness or comfort and what is the cost of that, the cost is insurmountable right now. I mean, I couldn't put a dollar amount on anything that we're going through right now in this country, because we're talking in the terms of billions and trillions, and you hear these numbers thrown around all the time. And it's hard for me collectively to sit back and go, what does that even mean? I mean, when somebody says we gave I think the number was $800 billion to Ukraine for the war, the only term, let me walk this backwards. The only relevancy I can give to that is an analogy somebody said about 25 years ago, and I'll never forget it. Goes like this. If you take a dollar bill and you equate it to a second in time, to count to 1,000,000, if you're just picturing just laying down a dollar bill, $1 bill, 2, 3, 4, 5, a second at a time, to count to $1 million takes 11 and a half days. To count to $1 billion, 1 second at a time, takes 31 years. And to count to $1 trillion takes 31,709 years. I don't know about you, but that's hard for me to conceptualize. It's hard for me to wrap my head around, because I'm going to live 60, 70, 80 years, whatever it is on earth, right? 31,709 years, a second at a time, a dollar bill at a time. And we've got 35 of those as our national debt right now. And I'm rabbit trailing for a minute intentionally. Left wing, right wing, the only thing that I think Congress agrees on is no term limits. Terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. Left wing and right wing, it's the same bird. That's the only thing that really ticks me off about the government, because there's going to be good decisions and bad decisions either way. We all know that. The driver to me is we have people that live in Congress for their entire life, where our debt is insurmountable. The cost of our debt is never going to be overcome, not in our lifetimes, especially when you start thinking about it 1 second at a time, $1 at a time. Those numbers are too big to conceptualize. Well, if you're sitting out there And you're like, well, what hope is there then? Why should I try? Why should I care? I believe those numbers actually feed into part of a problem in society right now, because the things are so big, we can't deal with it anymore. And so what we do is we start pushing back in our own way. And rather than going and doing something hard, rather than being personally accountable, rather than being responsible, there's some people that actually justify, well, the government's doing it to me, so therefore I'm going to do it back to them. And I hate Donald Trump, or I hate Joe Biden, or I hate whoever's in office. So therefore I'm going to go around and scream and yell, and I'm going to take the easy road out, and I'm going to justify it by, look what they've done to us financially. I'm never going to get ahead. Everything's tripled in cost. I want to go do something, build something, take my family to dinner. It costs 3 times, 4 times what it used to cost 5 years ago. And I think there's a lot of byproducts that feed into this stuff. And I realized I'd painted a big picture, but I believe there is a lot of that goes back to the comfort level of, I just don't care anymore. So I'm not going to do anything because it's insurmountable.
You mentioned that, the 300 or so, however many were here for the No Kings protest here in Castle Rock on the fairgrounds. And you and I both know, majority of the people there, they're not locals. They're not from Castle Rock.
I would assume not.
And, I drove by. I was on my way somewhere, and I just so happens that whenever I leave my house, I drive by the fairgrounds whenever I go that way. And I drove by, and I was really trying to take a look at the license plates. And it looked like in the parking lot, there was a couple license plates that were from Colorado, but definitely a couple license plates that weren't. And it's led me to really think of, there's definitely been a lot of claims out there of, people are getting paid to come to these protests, to just be bodies to this protest. Now, I don't know the validity to that. I don't have any proof in my hand about anything. But there has definitely been people that have come forward and shown that they have been compensated to be a part of some of these protests that are going on, which is wild to even think about, that these are literally quite possibly protests that are funded in a time where people are pretty desperate for money in any way, shape, or form with the way that the economy has been. But if you think about that, and you think about, still, there is this natural instinct that a lot of us have. It's not usually, for most of us, the first thing that comes to mind isn't just to bite the hand that feeds you.
Right.
So if you've got an organization, or you've got a party that you've been a part of, and they've been literally compensating you, giving you money, you're probably going to continue to trust them, vote for them, fly their banners, fly their flags. And it doesn't help that we've got algorithms that are also promoting that. I have 2 accounts on X right now. I've got the team's account, and then I have my personal account. And if I switch between the two, for whatever reason, one of them, the algorithm picked up being more of a left-wing algorithm, and then the other one picked up being a right-wing algorithm. And that's on X. And X is supposed to be, the ultimate, like, truth-seeking, like, kind of in the middle. But they still have an algorithm. And in one of them, I have all this more conservative content that comes through the Explore page. And then I've got, on the other one, more liberal content that comes through. But it definitely is the way that all of the algorithms work on all the platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. The more that you consume, the more it's going to give you. That's the way that the algorithm works. And so for a lot of the people that are out there, they're continuing to be fed from this political party, these views, and whether it's literal money that they're getting compensated for, or it's just coming down to what they're scrolling through every day, they continue to hear the same things, see the same things, and that leads to have this impression on their viewpoint of the entire world, and it just further validates that identity that they continue to put on. And in a world like that, it's very difficult to really become an independent person and not be somebody who is just a product of the media, a product of the system, just putting it all out there. There's that song by Struggle Jennings that you and I have talked about. That's a good example. In the chorus, whenever it goes to the chorus and it says, "The show goes on because of you fools."
Yep.
And we've been dancing with the wrong things too long, lies out there. And I think that's all to bring us to this point of right now where we're at, is there's truth and then there's lies.
Yeah.
That's where we're at in the world today. And I just have to go out and say it. And I do feel like it to me, it's ridiculous that I even have to say this, that I'm about to have to say, because of the way that words have become as weighty as they are in today's society. But I said before, just because I was just thinking, well, me and you are pro free will. And so the word that I used was pro choice, but I can't use the word pro choice because you and I are not pro choice.
Yeah.
I'm very much pro life, not because I don't believe that people should have their own decisions, but it's the opposite of that. If people made a decision and they didn't use the right protection, if they did that, that shouldn't be anybody else's fault or responsibility, but their own.
Right.
They should have been able to take the precautions beforehand. And if something went wrong from there, then they have an obligation to another life at that point. That's my stance.
Sure.
Is that there shouldn't be anybody out there able to make a decision to be able to take somebody else's life.
Yeah.
That's murder.
Yeah.
And I believe that life starts at conception.
Sure.
And obviously that's the argument that a lot of people have started to try to make, which is just flat out ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a life.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
Well,
life.
if a microorganism is life on Mars, then a heartbeat is life on Earth.
Exactly.
We can sit here and have that debate all day long, but that debate just ended. It's that simple to me. So if we're going to follow the science on Mars, then I'm following the science on Earth. And if people are like, well, it's because it's a faith thing or it's a God thing. No, it's a common sense thing. You put two things together that grow, they're going to grow. You've created life, period. Be it inside a human body, be it on top of a countertop, and it turns into mold. Something is growing there. So yeah, that argument begins and ends in one sentence.
And then it always goes to nowadays as well, what if there has to be a termination to keep the mother's life? And I really like the way that Charlie Kirk handles it every time that somebody approaches him with this topic, and that is just, well, there's a reason why a C-section exists. Yeah. And look at that the chances of there being no health consequences to either is significantly higher with just a cesarean section.
Sure.
So that's what I would go to. But regardless, you got to look at the parties and what parties are pushing. It's not that either of them have it all right, because they both have a lot wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's a matter of there's going to be humanity on both sides. There's going to be evil on both sides. But it's a matter of, okay, well, I'm at least going to stand up for what I know is just blatantly out there that is completely wrong. Murder is wrong. We shouldn't be killing babies. We shouldn't be mutilating babies. We shouldn't be mutilating children.
Right.
And a lot of the policies on the left is more and more so let kids do what they want to do and let them make the decision whether the parents are involved or not. And if the parents don't support it, then there's going to be consequences for them too. That's just horrible. And I think that there's at least hopefully enough people that know that to where that's the reason that the election went the way that it went. And it's not to say that Donald Trump has all the answers. I know there's a lot of people that are upset with him. And I know that there's a lot of controversy behind the bill that he's working on and trying to get passed. But the point is, right now, the whole point of what I've been making with even bringing that up is we are in a world today where we're trying to, me and you are having a discussion on how we can basically mitigate these costs of comfort. And that is to continue to improve ourselves. And it's honestly, in the world we're living in today, being an outlier, being that stronger person, being that person who stands up, it's probably easier than ever. It's harder than ever on one level, but it's easier than ever. And it goes back to what you and I said, and I think you said it in maybe the last episode, maybe it was the first episode, but the greatest discipleship opportunity that there's ever been.
Oh, for sure.
In a world where there's just so much that's just being constantly put in our face as being a lie, and in a world where so many people are just accepting lies and just accepting to just live a comfortable lifestyle, it makes it to where the opportunities are even greater for people who actually want to stand up and not put up with that. They actually want to stand up and do something about it. They want to do something with their life. They want to be that strong person. They want to be that capable person. Because that's where I believe that, especially as men, we have this obligation to become the best version of ourselves, to become capable of being violent, capable of destruction, capable of violence, capable of danger. And I love the way that Jordan Peterson has put it.
Yeah.
And that is that we have to be capable, because that is where morality really comes from. That's how we're good people, is because we've worked so hard to become these incredibly capable people, whether it's at working hard, defending what we've worked for, all of the above. We have built something and we're not afraid to protect it, and we're capable of protecting it. Right. We're capable of being violent, but it's with that capability that we control and that we carry with humility that we become those good, strong people that we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Because
without it, if we're not even capable of it, then we're not good people. It's just we're not capable of it. So what are we? We're nothing.
Well, if anybody's ever look, if you've ever served, if you've ever been over in the box, then you know how true this is. People watch it on the news. I don't think they completely understand it, but you got essentially three sects of activity that's happening over in the box as far as beliefs go in the Muslim world. And one of the things that's very, very interesting to me. So if you go over into let's just say Afghanistan as a whole, it's an easier way to, instead of breaking it down into specific cities, you've got people that have been fighting in the name of Allah for centuries. You've got third world living conditions, underdeveloped living conditions, lack of running water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it is all due to one can't agree with the other to the other to the other. It's easy for me to sit over here having seen so much of this and having so many buddies that have been over there and served and on and on and on. I watch this and I can tell you right now, as an established country as we are, easily in the top 10 socioeconomic countries in the world, probably the most established country in the world in so many different factors, we are about 2 steps away from becoming third world ugly. And people just conceptually do not understand that. So over there, they're fighting over religion and they're fighting over their own beliefs within religion. And there's a lot of people that are not learned to understand that. And that's fine. I mean, there's a degree of ignorance that comes with that. But there's a naivety in America right now, I believe, with just how quickly we can devolve. We're literally a step away. And Jordan Peterson, you mentioned him, he goes on to say, in fact, if you are not capable of violence, then you are essentially a weak, useless human being, because at the end of the day, you have to be capable to step up in the moment should you need to step up. And I look at the factor of what's happening over there and what they've been doing for years, and just millions of people that have just been murdered in the name of something. But if you also look at the superstructure around and the infrastructure, the socioeconomic structure, nothing's evolved. I mean, there are cities over there, but the vast outlying lands that are over there, it is a train wreck all the time. And if you look at what is happening here, we're starting to, we're not at that point, but we are starting to get to a tipping point where people are going to have to start making some decisions if we can't get some of this stuff under control. Right now, I'm always abide by the law, let law enforcement do their thing, let the military come in and do their thing. That's why we have them. We got the best in the world. We know that we have the best in the world. But we are also at a point of, and I'll say it one more time, we are in real time, real seeing, real things happening, and people sponge and feed off of that, right? It's back in my day when I was growing up, you never yelled fire at a movie theater because everybody panics. Nowadays, you can yell it online and everybody panics. There's no more movie theater. Now the world is the movie theater. We're all watching the same show. And it just depends on what channel you're tuning into. But at the end of the day, there's a huge reaction that is happening in this country right now. And I watched the movie the other day. Somebody told me you got to watch Civil War. It was okay. I mean, I got where the guy was going. But the thing that's unique, if you go back to the 14th Amendment and Lincoln's time frame and the Civil War and everything that was happening there, it was blue versus gray, and it was essentially over slavery. I mean, it was essentially a topic that they were fighting over. It was the freedom of men, right? And so we don't have a blue versus gray situation going on right now in this country. What we have is we have a left versus right thing, and then we've got about 50 subchapters within the left and about 8 subchapters within the right, and they're all fighting with each other. So the only uniformity that we have right now is either you're on the left or you're on the right. But once you get over into that party on either side, and you should really start digging into what's going on, it's a little bit like what's going on overseas over in the box. You got some people that are all fighting kind of over the exact same thing and they can't agree with it. We have a little bit more civility about how we deal with it here, but we got a lot of folks that don't understand. When evil's on your doorstep, you got to be able to step up and protect it. And right now, because of the softness, because of the weakness, because of the comfort, the cost of that, the byproduct of that, I think is going to be catastrophic when it really hits the fan. And when I say really hits the fan, I mean, we're going to have some type of event that ultimately is going to happen. We all know this to be true. We just don't know what it is or when it's going to happen. But when it happens, watch and see what unfolds, and watch and see how this gets carried out and how it plays out, because human nature is human nature. I don't care where you go. Everybody is going to want to protect themselves, and everybody's going to want to protect their loved ones. And at the end of the day, is there enough men and women in blue on the streets? I hope so.
You and me both. I don't remember if it was Jordan Peterson. It was somebody else on Joe Rogan's podcast that talked about gender being a topic in lots of societies, becoming an overwhelming topic right before their downfall, right before their demise,
Sure.
in lots of different societies and lots of different cultures. And we definitely see that right now. But I think what's super concerning is there's obviously people behind a lot of what's going on in the world today that are just fanning that flame of division.
Sure.
There has to be, because why is it that we can't be able to just find some common ground, at least in common sense? Nowadays, you have to argue about everything. You can't, if you aren't on the same page on this, we'll never be on the same page. We can't even talk. All we can do is argue.
Right.
I mean, there's channels on YouTube I like to follow. I think one of them is called Jubilee. One of them might be called Common Ground or something like that. That might be the series that they do. I'm not sure. But you will literally see where people can't even have a conversation and not be right, and not be, well, you this is what I believe in, whether it's abortion, whether it's gender, whatever it might be. Just things that should be common sense that we should just be able to agree on. We can't agree on. And there's got to be this pressure that's coming from higher powers or powers that be, that is continuing to just fan the flame of this division, because it's not getting better. It's been getting worse. And I think that the protests are one of the greatest examples of how bad it's gotten. Is that, I mean, and there's a couple of independent journalist YouTube channels that I follow that have closely followed these protests. And they're just there and they're just interviewing people, asking people questions. And a lot of them, you can see that they really don't even know what they're there for. They don't even know what they're protesting about. And some of them that act like that they do, they don't really explain it very well. They don't explain it like they really understand it, or they really stand for it, or they really understand it. Most of the people that I heard were just like, oh yeah, Donald Trump's horrible.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, why is he horrible? Tell us why. Oh, because he's a felon. Because he's done this, that, and the other. There's just no acknowledgement of any agendas, of anything that's about how hard that the opposing party tried to keep Trump from office. There's no acknowledgement whatsoever. There's nothing grounded in fairness. It's all just, this is the way, this is what we believe. No matter what you say, you're never going to change it. We're never going to believe anything different than what we've already chosen to believe or been told to believe, almost.
Right.
It's almost like they've just been, a lot of them, it seems like that they've just been told this, and they've been told it for so long that's never going to change.
Sure.
You could literally put it in their hands. Here is the evidence. Here's the proof that what you're saying is completely untrue, and it won't even matter one bit to them. And there has to be this fanning of that flame of division, because it's getting worse.
Well,
It's
I
not
think,
getting better.
yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, but it to me, I don't think it's that complex. I think cell phones are the downfall of men. I think social media will be the downfall, connected to the downfall of men through cell phones. Somebody said to me recently, I think they said porn was it's the single greatest epidemic problem for men in the history of history. And I said, no, I think cell phones are. And they're like, well, why would you say that? And I'm like, because nobody leaves home without their cell phone. Like, nobody. I mean, if you leave the house and you get halfway to work and you forgot your phone, you're going to turn around and go back and get it. You leave home without your porn, you're not turning around to go back to get it so that you can go to the office. I don't care what anybody says. You could have a problem. You could have a serious addiction to something. I think that phones are an addiction to 5-year-olds and 75-year-olds and everything in between, because it's your source, right? And so everybody has become an expert on everything because of one company. I said it in the first podcast. I'll say it again. Google is the reference point. There might be 5 major search engines, but Google is the reference point for everything, for everybody, for every language, everywhere in the world, period. Like, end of story. There is no debating anymore. It's just, let me open up my phone and I'm going to go to this. It's become a noun and a verb, right? It's become an action. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to Google this thing. And here's what I Googled. I mean, it's almost comical. It's like the whole thing where computers are now asking us to prove that we're not robots in order to be able to use a site. And we laugh about it, but the terrifying element of all of this stuff, and I'm a conspiracy theorist only in as much as I question things that I believe should be questioned. I don't need to question. I'll give a simple example. If I build $1 million home, brand new home, and I drill a hole in the top of the house, I think I said this the other day, and I don't fix that hole, sooner or later it's going to dilapidate. There's going to be mold. Things are going to be bad. I don't need to be an expert to look up and go, water's going to come through that hole and ruin my house if I don't do something with it. That's easy. So I don't need to Google that. That's just not it. But if I want to source information and I'm having a debate with somebody or a disagreement or I'm trying to prove a point, what am I going to? I can state something that I know to be true from perspective. And this is, to me, there's a big difference between opinion, perception, and perspective. Perspective is always, to me, the single most important thing. I can have an opinion on anything. I can sit back and tell you why I think something's important. But if I have perspective on it, or somebody else has perspective on something, like I wouldn't go to a surgeon as a paramedic. Like, right, I'm a TAC medic. I'm tactically trained. I've responded to literally thousands of emergency stuff between the ER and out on the road. I'm not a surgeon. I'm not an x-ray machine. I can pull up and look in a car crash and go, well, that's a bilateral femur fracture. I can tell you what it is. I can't fix it. I can get them out of the car. I can extricate them. I can evac them. We can hot fill them over into the ER. They're going to get treatment, and eventually they're going to go to surgery. I don't have that capability, none whatsoever. So when I look through the lens of what is our downfall, what is driving it, everybody's now become a proverbial expert on everything, which is why everybody's arguing about it, because they can pick up their phone, they can source something, whether they know to be true or not, but they have no actual perspective on the vast majority of what they're talking about. I can't argue with the surgeon. If the surgeon comes in and says, hey, man, here's what we got to do with your leg to save it, I got to trust the surgeon. I'm not picking up Google and going, yeah, doc, I think you're wrong, while I'm writhing in pain. And that, to me, is where we're at. Like, everybody can do anything they want with a device in their hand that costs them $1,000, and they are now the proverbial expert. And that includes you, me, and everybody on the planet. So I like to look through the lens of, you say it best as a professor in jiu-jitsu, you can't fake it on the mat. There's no faking jiu-jitsu, right? Well, there's no faking firearms either. Either you're on target or you're not on target. The bullet lands where you aim. And at the end of the day, people can say what they want, but you can't Google your end results on your target. You can't Google jiu-jitsu. You might learn some terms, you might see some things, but at the end of the day, you got to prove it.
Right.
And you know full well. You'll know when I'm starting to use strength versus leverage, and you start doing things to me that I'm like, well, that made me very uncomfortable very quickly, because you know exactly what the truth is in my ability. And that's what I love about doing hard things, because I know what it's like to go out and do something hard. I have perspective in it. It doesn't make me the best at it, but it certainly gives me a reality check versus, oh my gosh, I don't know how to change a tire. Let me Google it, or get on my hands and knees and break out the jack up the car and change the flipping tire.
Yeah. Well, there are a few things that are harder to do and to learn than jiu-jitsu. That's for sure. As you're saying, liking doing hard things. And I think that's a big part of what makes jiu-jitsu special. But as you're speaking about Google, it reminded me that I just recently spoke with somebody who's in marketing, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy. We were just talking after Open Mat the other day, and we were talking about how it's kind of, we're seeing this shift from Google to AI. And Google has their own AI now. So a lot of times whenever you're Googling, you're not even going through the search results. You're just looking at what Google AI kicks out and spits back at you.
That's right.
And I think that a lot of people are turning around, and ChatGPT was kind of the big one on the block in the beginning, and it still is probably the biggest player right now. And so a lot of people are going to ChatGPT before they go to Google, and they're just asking ChatGPT for exactly what you said. We can find out whatever we need to find out. So with that, we're going to see either there's going to be an improvement or there's going to be a downfall because, well, let's hope that people like Elon Musk with Grok, that is supposed to be ultimately truth-seeking.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see that as we have him as an example fighting for freedom and fighting for truth, that we see others feel at least a little bit of a necessity to make sure what they're putting out is not just blatantly false. Otherwise, hopefully we'll have people like Elon and X and Grok be able to show everybody, well, why would you even believe them? They have absolutely no credibility. Just look at this. It's completely false. So I think with that, hopefully the bar will be raised at least a little bit. I'm just trying to be optimistic instead of just being completely negative here. Trying to be optimistic that hopefully we'll see some accountability, and we'll see that some other companies will at least follow suit a little bit, to where it's not just going to be blatant lies that are told on AI responses, because otherwise it would just be pretty easily fact checked on another source that'll actually give sources and show this is why this is not true. This is why this is true. So I don't know. The next few years is definitely going to be very interesting to see how it unfolds as far as how we're getting our information, because we're already seeing that shift from mostly Google to now starting to at least shift to mostly AI.
So do you think it's going to take years, though, realistically, or do you think it's going to take?
I don't think it'll take years, but I think that what we will see is that it's going to take a couple of years to really at least start to have the ability to maybe even reasonably calculate the impact of how all of this AI is going. I mean, I can't get on social media right now without those viral selfie videos from gorillas or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing how quickly AI is just sweeping and taking everything over, from what we consume every day to how we get our information every day. So I'm going to answer your question kind of with two answers. We're already seeing the effect, but I think it's going to take some time to really show what that's going to be, relatively longer term than just what it's doing right now.
I think the fallout is going to take some time to measure. I watched a video the other day somebody sent to me, and we'll get to the point where we'll just pull them up so we can show them here and review them. But here's what they sent. It was people interviewing other people talking about this as a fake video and you're an AI character in this video that I'm creating. And I sat there and I watched this thing, and I thought, when I was watching it, I thought it was a bunch of street interviews where they're going up and they're just role playing. The whole thing was 100% AI. And the point to the video is you can't tell the difference. So they had AI in and they had a real person in, and the real person was doing the interview of fake AI people, and then AI was doing an interview of real people, and it was saying, tell which one is different. And you could not physically, I'm telling you, you could not, there's no way you could see the difference in it. That's how good this video was. And what's terrifying about that is you can take, so I've heard Hollywood people talk about this, it's going to ruin the industry because now you can recreate character like Bing Crosby all of a sudden comes back to life, right? And we're already seeing videos that it's in there, and you can see it and you go, okay, there's some AI in there, but it's getting so clean so fast. My fear is not for Hollywood. My fear is for mankind in the everyday stuff. So imagine, we talk about what it's like being this episode, it's soft and the cost of this. Well, part of it, of not taking a stand, not pushing back, is there's a problem, but also not discerning, not critically thinking, that's a problem. And now I'm a dad. I'm sitting at home and I'm role playing because, my daughter's grown, college and gone. But let's say I got a 15, 16, 18-year-old girl at home, and she comes home, she's devastated, her world is rocked, and somebody has launched naked pictures of her online, and it's all 100% AI, but it's so real looking that now you're trying to diffuse that, and her reputation is scarred forever, and she's trying to tell everybody it's not me. And somebody makes up a story because some 18-year-old kid that knows how to work AI decides he's mad at this girl because she wouldn't go out with him. This is the kind of stuff we'd see in law enforcement all the time back in the day, except for it was something physically done or really done in real life. Boy, I need to learn to talk. And now you got stuff where you can just make something up. So you could make up stuff in crimes. You could make up excuses. In trying to disprove that these things are real, the average person is never going to be able to keep up with this. I mean, you're going to have to go hire an expert in a courtroom of a crime that you've been accused of committing, because somebody can now crop a video, make a video. Back in the day, it was editing. Now it's just, you can just create something. You can showcase somebody doing something wrong. They weren't even there. They had nothing to do with it. The next thing you know, they're trying to defend themselves. And I can see this thing just rabbit trailing in 1,000 different directions overnight at milliseconds, not days, weeks, or months. I mean, like, you can create this stuff instantaneously. And that is the part that terrifies me the most about this. And I think, it's a whole different conversation, but I do believe it leads back to, because we're not intentional right now to be authentic and get after the things we need to get after and work hard. We're taking the lazy route. AI is the epitome of laziness. And at the exact same time, there's going to be tremendous good that's going to come from it. I think, like in medical advancements and production values and things like, you're going to see a lot of good come from AI. There's no doubt. But I think you're equally going to see a tremendous amount of bad that's going to come from it. And on a personal level, on a family level, on a crime level, on, fill in the blank, I think that we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg of what this is going to do. And you're going to have a lot of fallout with nobody that's going to be able to fill in. Because I can tell you right now, even with the source material you have, so if you take the sheriff's department here, they're very equipped, amazing sheriff. I love Darren Weekly and his staff. Can you imagine 10,000 cases all of a sudden drop in the next month and they've got 25 investigators? And you're sitting down and trying to disprove something that you're looking at that looks so unbelievably real. Now, the whole shift in that agency is going to have to be tech-based as they move forward. So you're going to have to respond to real crime in progress to stop it because it's real. But all the back-end tech on the white-collar stuff and on the porn side and the different things that can be done to people, I think we're entering uncharted territory of epic proportions right now.
Well, what I want to do is make sure that I am doing everything I possibly can to build a real life, that people know me so well. It's so proven that I don't ever have to worry. Somebody drops a video, people are like, that's not shared.
Yeah.
That's what we got to be focusing on.
Speaking on real life, we got kids walking in.
Yeah, we do. At the end of the day, this got to be our compass. This got to be our guide.
Yeah.
Not the Constitution.
Right.
Not whatever the government says. Not what ChatGPT says. Not what Google says. This got to be our guide. And 2 Timothy, we said this in the last episode, 2 Timothy 2:3. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, as we're wrapping this up, get out there, do something hard today.
Yeah.
Endure some suffering. Do it because it's going to make tomorrow easier, because it's going to make tomorrow better. And that's really what the intent. I know we kind of rabbit trailed a little bit and we talked about a lot, but that's okay. That's what this
all
show's
connected,
for.
though. It's all connected.
And it's very important. But as we're wrapping up, I'll go ahead and wrap us up here before we finish up and just say a quick word for everybody listening. And for us, Lord, thank you for another opportunity to be able to sit down and have a conversation. God, we want, at the end of every episode, we want to be able to look back and make sure that you were put exactly where you were supposed to be put in all of it, because it's all about you, God. It's not about me. It's not about Micah. It's not about anybody other than you. We want to lift you up and glorify you. And Lord, we want to be people who reflect you well. We want to be good soldiers. And we know that with that comes enduring hardship. You endured hardship, Jesus. You took up that cross. You died on that cross for us, and we thank you and we honor you for that. Thank you for not neglecting your own suffering, not neglecting your own struggle. You had to do what was hard. And I pray that you'd help and encourage each of us that are listening, encourage us, Lord, to even right now today, to pick up, to deny ourselves and pick up our cross and carry it. I pray that you'd help us, that you would continue to equip us and give us the strength that we need. I pray that you would raise up leaders in this world, in this nation, that you would help us to be the men and women that you have called us to be, and that you would help us to be good examples of that and to walk in your light and your freedom, Jesus. It's all about you, and we thank you right now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, brother.
Good episode.
Yes, sir. Good work. Always a pleasure. We'll see you next time.